electrical, like the sales process is different. The lead funnels are different. Seasonality is different from the other two. And even down to pricing and business model and what the core services are and how to think about that, they're all different. So it is complicated to run them. Now, we're blessed because we run it closer to scale. Our smallest trade has like 30 people in it. Whereas, most of our competitors, they might have like 5 guys in HVAC and 1 in plumbing and 1 in electric.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Small Business Mentor podcast, where we shine a light on the black holes of business growth with your host, Alan Pentz. In each episode, we explore the leaps and bounds entrepreneurs make as they push their businesses beyond the 1 million mark into the realm of professional sustainable growth. Stay with us as we navigate the journey from brute force to finesse.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the Small Business Mentor. We have a very special guest, the one and only John Wilson of the Wilson Companies. He is the prototypical home service owner in Ohio. So he's the guy that all the iBankers are trying to buy out when they leave Goldman for their searcher career. He is the guy. So he's got amazing podcasts of his own and a newsletter. You should definitely check out both, owned and operated. And we can link to the websites for that. But John, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Been looking forward to this one. This will be fun.
Cool. All right, John. So just give us quick, where are the Wilson Companies now? This is sort of like a family business, right? So it was inherited. Is that right?
Not inherited. I did buy it, but family business. Okay. Yeah. So Wilson Companies, we started in 1958.
Wow.
And so
you look kind of young for that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's a good skincare routine. That's
right.
Yeah.
You're cold plunging every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My grandfather Ralph started it with $500 in a pickup truck. And then my dad bought it in 85 and I bought it from him in 2016. And then he and I co-ran it together for about 2.5, 3 years.
Wow.
In 2019, I fully assumed it and it's been quite a ride. If you follow me on Twitter or, read any of my stuff, we basically went from $1 million in 2016 to 26 this year in 2024. And that's obviously been quite the journey. And most of that growth has happened in the last couple of years. So, we closed out 2019 at 3.8. So,
wow,
really,
congratulations.
Yeah, big hockey stick. So, that's what it is now. So we're residential, plumbing, HVAC, electric. About 95% of the business is residential, direct to homeowner services. And we are, for better or worse, we are the exact company that everybody wants to buy.
How many emails do you get a week?
Dude, it slowed down a little bit, but it's kind of ridiculous. But I get it. We are right down. It's an interesting testament to how you build your business. So if you do the hard things, but the right things, so if you constantly reinvest, if you drive for reputation, like a lot of Google reviews, if you drive for scale, if you get on the right software, if you focus on the right customers, and if you build your own marketing funnels, you create a lot of value. It is ridiculous. So I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, yes, we are exactly what everybody wants to buy, but it's also because we built the thing to be exactly like that. So
actually, everybody wants to buy the thing you bought in 2016 and turn it into what you turned it into.
Yes.
So
I'm sure that they would rather do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the big PE guys want you now, but so how much of that was just organic? Obviously you bought the original business, but did you guys acquire after the original business?
Yeah. So we've acquired 9 companies, varying shapes and sizes. Most of them very small, under $1 million of revenue. So to give some perspective, just revenue by year. So from 2016 to 2019, we acquired 2, but one was 700,000 in sales. One was 300,000. And then in 2021, we acquired 3. In 2022, we acquired 1, but it was $400,000 in sales. So I think acquired revenue is probably around 7 million of what we've acquired. And the other 19 was us.
Wow. That's huge. And we'll get into some of that, but how would you rate the acquisitions? All good, some
terrible.
Good, terrible.
Some were good. Some were good. But honestly, most were good. Only one was bad. And looking back, Like, I should have known. Like, it wasn't even my first one. It was like my fifth. And I think I was just like deal hungry or something.
Yeah.
So I closed a deal I shouldn't have. And it's just been years of annoyance.
Yeah. I mean, so you're growing so much organically. I mean, why bother with acquisitions? Did you acquire to get into other services?
We're not anymore. I honestly don't know if we'll do another deal before like 50 to 70 million.
Yeah.
So like you talk about this a lot, and I think it's entertaining because we're just coming out of it, but just sort of the plateaus or the black holes or whatever you want to call it, of like when to get past these plateaus. So for us, we mainly used acquisitions as like a way to blow through a plateau. So if we started to feel like, okay, growth is getting hard, like we don't understand what the next step is, we don't see another reinvestment that I can easily make, acquire. I don't know if it was that well thought out, but that, like, looking back, that's what happened. That's how I must have felt about it. So, we got past the $5 million mark by acquiring. I didn't get past that organically. We got past the $10 million mark by acquiring. Now we are crossing the 20 and the 30 and 40 in the next 18 months. That's all organic. But I think, you have to get the right people in place, and that just takes money, and it takes scale, and it, all this stuff, it's, it just takes money and scale.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask. So you didn't like necessarily get like the talent you needed from the acquisition. I mean, obviously you get techs and stuff, but you didn't get like the management talent.
No.
You didn't get some system, some way of selling better, but it did give you scale.
Gave us scale. Yeah. So basically it sped up our revenue growth. And we did get team members. We got a lot of team members.
Yeah.
But it sped up our revenue growth, which allowed us to make investments into the team and into our infrastructure that allowed us then to grow organically. So we've gotten that question a lot of, why are you not going to acquire? That's how you got here. And it's like, yeah, but we had to acquire to get to scale fast. And it was almost an easier way to reinvest than organic. Whereas now organic is the easy button. Like we can invest from here to, we don't see a barrier between us and maybe 50 million.
Yeah, exactly. And acquisition would probably be a distraction and take resources away from something that's growing faster.
Yeah, massive waste of time. Yeah, like our, next year we'll probably grow 50 to 60% organic. Like, why would I waste a single moment?
I mean, how much more can you do, right?
Yeah. Like, why would it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly. And so did you acquire into other services, or was it all kind of in the same?
Yeah. And that's the other thing we used acquisitions for, is deepening our service base. Yeah. So like electrical, we see a lot of competitors try to get into electrical, and it all starts the same. They get one or two guys, but it's really hard to recruit for it. It's hard to build leads. It's hard to do all that. It's much easier if you just buy a company with 30 electricians. Same with drains. That was a big one. We wanted to get into more drain work. Much easier if you buy a company with 15 drain guys, already doing replacements, running septic, having customers. So we used acquisitions, technicians, capabilities, new service lines.
Yeah. So I just want to make a point for like all the searchers out there who probably tuned out after my giving shade in the beginning, but at least all the iBankers dropped off.
I am wearing a Patagonia vest, so
that's
one.
That's it. It's not co-branded with Goldman though, so it's not
Evergreen Capital or something.
Right, exactly. But my take is, every company you bought. First of all, you knew the first one, right? Intimately, being raised in it, and then you knew the industry and every other acquisition you did, and still you fucked one up, and still you're like, yeah, they were okay. They weren't like the best thing in the world. So just like acquisitions it's good for a strategy. I also think it's probably the best acquisitions are made by people who know the industry, know the company, know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's proven. I don't even think that I'm the best example of this. Like, better examples than me would be Chris Hoffman or Brian Beers. Brian Beers has done, and I've talked about him on other shows, he's done something incredible. And my next sentence is not meant to discredit what he's done at all, but he was raised, like his dad owned a Midas franchise.
Yeah.
So he did something amazing, and he did something that like very few people will ever do. And like, I aspire to do that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But he grew up in it. Right?
I had him on the pod a month ago. And I mean, my take was the great thing about franchising, it's like a ready-made acquisition machine. It's an M&A machine, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of laid out for you.
if you're already in it, if you know it, yeah, you can do well. But I know a lot of people that basically grew up in the business, and they're the people that I see driving $100 million businesses or close to it.
So let's talk a little bit. So you had a great, I thought, amazing newsletter post on your ranking of home services.
Yeah, people get fascinated by this.
I know. I love it. It's like people love to get into these little things because everyone hears about home services. It's great. And everyone sort of hears plumbing, HVAC, electrical, right? So you hear that kind of stuff. But you get into a lot of other stuff. So let's just start with those are the three you started with, right? So you guys were originally just plumbing?
So we were plumbing and heating, not air conditioning, but plumbing and heating. So the way that works is you replace boilers, which is kind of plumbing adjacent.
Yeah. And then, so why are those three like the top and why do they go together?
So like my overarching philosophy on home service or service businesses in general is I really like a service install model. And I think if you're assessing, hey, and some of this is personal goals, right? So like, I acknowledge that other people don't have the needs that I have. But I have the innate need to drive something to 9 figures. I think that would be fun. So what I think most people should start with is how big can something get? Like, what's the TAM? And if the TAM is like, or even the average, like what's the average? Because we should never assume that we are much better than average. So like, what's the average? And if the average competitor in that space is like $1 million, is that a space that you want to be competing in? So plumbing, HVAC, average is smaller, sub $5 million for sure. So we have beat the average, which is great. But there are also $200 and $300 million versions of this industry, this service in one city. So to me, that's like, okay, you can grow a $300 million business in this industry.
And that's, are you saying specifically plumbing, HVAC?
Yeah.
Electrical. Okay.
Yeah, but if you contrast that to cleaning, and I know that we're going to go through the rankings here, but if you contrast that to cleaning, like I have heard of very few cleaning companies over $1 million. Very few. And they're all very staff intensive. That does not sound like a fun business to me, where it's like $1 million total. Like I just want to solve big problems and I want to be working on big problems. So,
but why put those three together? It's just all three of them have big market potential, or is there other
big market
synergy
potential,
between them?
They cross sell a lot. It's all inside the home. They're all licensed. So that's another big one.
Right.
You know, most of the other services are not licensed, but plumbing, HVAC, electrical are. So it's sort of like the licensed home services. And part of the reason why that's valuable and why these companies get so big is there's a moat. The license is a pretty big moat. So that helps to allow companies to grow much larger.
So is it better? So like if you were looking at it, so you got a plumbing company in Cleveland, like you do, and is it better to then go into electrical in Cleveland, or is it better to go into plumbing in Philadelphia too?
I think this one's a personal choice. So we chose what we did because I wanted to put my kids down every night. And I knew that if we went multi-location in different states and geographic expansion in that way, before we were at scale, I would be traveling a lot, which wasn't how I wanted to live my life. So we chose deeper services in one market. Yeah,
I think just personally, I don't know what you see in the industry, but it seems like that makes more sense to me because these feel like market specific kind of businesses with, it's driven by Google, local reviews and local advertising. It's much easier.
I think
and if you're referring customers, then of course.
It's not as simple as it probably sounds. And they don't go together. Like they go together in that they're licensed and that they cross sell. But besides that, each of them it's a completely different business. It really is. It's like, it's as different as Ford making cars versus a Ford maintenance facility. Like, they all touch the car, but they're pretty different. So electrical, like the sales process is different. The lead funnels are different. Seasonality is different from the other two. And even down to pricing and business model and what the core services are and how to think about that, they're all different. So it is complicated to run them. Now we're blessed because we run it closer to scale. Our smallest trade has like 30 people in it. Whereas, most of our competitors, they might have like 5 guys in HVAC and 1 in plumbing and 1 in electric. And we have like 30 and 40 of each. So that helps because you can develop deep expertise. But I actually think it's the other way around. where it's more natural to go geographic multi-location. Because if you are an expert at driving a sales process in plumbing and you understand lead gen in plumbing and you understand how to recruit plumbers, then that's the thing that you should do, regardless of geography.
Right. Gotcha. And then what about margin profiles on these typical to the industry? Are they similar? And like any info you have on that? Like,
yeah.
What are
So plumbing usually runs around 60% gross margin. Electrical runs around 60% gross margin. HVAC runs around 50. And obviously HVAC has the most ridiculous swings up and down, depending on temperature and or lack thereof. Net is all over the board. It really depends on how are they investing those dollars. For us, we don't run a robust net, but we're also growing 70% year over year.
But a 60 gross margin business should be able to do 15 to 20% profit.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to go down if you're investing a lot.
Yeah.
To grow. So, I mean, as Craig Crabtree says, once you get to gross margin, everything tastes like chicken in business. So,
I agree with that too. But yeah, so gross margin profile, like a 3-trade company is usually running low 50s as like that's good. So sometimes there's gross margin compression for any number of reasons. We've had plenty of years where we've ended up in the high 40s or mid 40s. Could be service line related, could be difficult demand, could be bad performance and us not catching it. But overall target's 52 for us.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's helpful. And so then once you kind of talked about those, then your next thing was a water treatment?
Yeah, I'm kind of into water treatment right now.
So why did you go from that to water treatment? Why did it make the next number 2 spot?
If there's one thing that anyone needs to know about me is that if you follow the content that I create, I'm a curious person. So I get down these rabbit holes. And I currently have a rabbit hole with water treatment or businesses that feel similar to water treatment. So yeah, I think the average ticket's low. I'll give a comparison, like roofing maybe would be a different example of this, because lead gen for water treatment and roofing is really similar. You have door knockers, you have mailers, you have events, you have retail partnerships, you have all these different things. And obviously digital marketing, the stuff that everyone's doing. But the difference between water treatment and roofing is a $24,000 average ticket. So it's just a lot easier to close water treatment, and there's a recurring service component with either salt delivery or filter changes that you have to get in once a year. So I'm a big fan of that. I like the service install component. I like continuing on in the home. A roof needing replaced every 20 years is not as attractive to me because I like the idea of like you acquire a customer and you keep them for as long as you can. And then you can basically pay off that customer acquisition cost.
Yeah. Plus, I think you point out that you can sell water treatment from plumbing pretty easily.
Yeah. Water treatment, I like the average ticket. I think it makes sense. I think it's something that people are concerned about. So I think it's an easy thing to open up a conversation. Like if I'm going to go talk to somebody cold and introduce something to them, I would rather be talking about water quality than a new roof. Because I'm not thinking about my roof. I don't want to pay $30,000 or whatever a new roof would cost. I don't even know what a new roof would cost. But water filtration is like, I don't know, 4 to 6. Like that's a lot easier conversation to just start up.
And do you guys do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's like an add-on. That's not like, is it a separate business or is it just like an add-on to plumbing?
It's an add-on. We're starting to push a little bit harder on it. I'm curious to see what we're going to do with it. We see it as it's an add-on to plumbing, but it's sort of like drains. So drains is an add-on to plumbing, but drains is half of plumbing's revenue. Right. Or maybe a third.
Why is drains you mean like cleaning people's drains, unplugging people's drains?
Replacing them. Yep.
Versus like putting plumbing in housing, like ground up kind of stuff, or what?
No,
I thought that was plumbing.
Yeah. It's a part of plumbing, right? So, it's just a different trained person.
Okay. So yeah, right. And then the water treatment is basically like I've got X, Y, Z, like I have soft water, I have like sulfur water, or like, and you're installing something that filters it or something like that. Okay. Yeah. So there's like a maintenance.
There's maintenance to it. Something that we're interested in right now is so if like this funnel for the listener, I'm making a funnel above my head. So if this funnel is like my
Continuing the
existing
water
customers,
metaphor.
so the bottom of the funnel is member, and that's like the most valuable. The next is like current customer. The next is lapsed customer. And then above that is prospects, like anyone that my TAM, anyone that could use my services. I'm deeply fascinated right now by the people in between my TAM and my customers, which is like engaged prospects is how we're thinking about them. Like someone who has ever been introduced to my line of services, or even my name in any way. So how do we capture that individual into something, and how do we communicate to them more about the one thing that we're pushing on? And we're seeing water filtration as a way to do that, because I think like if I have, let's use round numbers, if I have 1,000 members and 10,000 customers and 20,000 lapsed customers, like customers that did business with us but 5 years ago or something, and my TAM is 1 million, but 600,000 of that people have heard of my name. How do I interact with those 600,000 people with regularity? How do I, like, what offer do I approach them with? And how do we think about that engaged prospect segment of our market?
Right,
And,
because they might bite on something like water filtration that's kind of hitting a different need than plumbing or
So that's why we're interested in water filtration at the moment. I mean, we're interested in general, but like at the moment, we're seeing it as a partial solution to this engaged prospect problem.
Interesting. So would it stand on its own as a business?
Not as a business, no, but like we do think we're sort of in launch mode on this project right now. And we do think it's a $5 to $8 million P&L in the next 18 months.
Similar kind of margins? Or?
Yeah. Okay. 50-60%.
So that's interesting. It's a way to engage an already engaged or activated to some extent potential client base with a different offering that registers in a way that they wouldn't have. That's interesting. So I hadn't thought about it that way.
Well, no one in my industry does. So my industry is not built on this. My industry is built on the hot lead.
Right.
Water's out, heat's out, pipe burst. We're built on the hot lead, and we're built on 85% conversion rates. So, but like the hot lead is such a low percentage of the market. How many water heaters break an hour at any given moment, right? But if you have millions of people in your TAM, then how do you directly communicate to 1 million of them?
Right.
It's an interesting problem. But
like in some way that makes sense to them given who you are, right?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good, I'm sure there's plenty of analogies of like other businesses where you have
a lot of other industries
offers.
A lot of other industries do it. Plumbing and HVAC is not there yet. And I don't know that they'll ever get there. I think that it's a solution for us. But yeah, that's the big problem that I'm working on right now.
That's also like leveraging your brand name in a different way, right? And also your local dominance.
Yes.
Wow. That's really interesting. I would love to see you write something about that when you get more.
We're like how that provides a long for a while.
But it's sort of like you've built a machine, right? You've captured this thing. Now there are these long tail opportunities that can bring in, they're not going to drive the 100 million, but they're going to drive a nice, steady revenue, probably bring people in, activate them to think of you when the water heater does break. So you get that contract too. Right.
Yeah.
I love that. That's really interesting.
It's an interesting problem. So we'll probably talk more openly about it in like a year or two.
Yeah.
But sort of the solutions that we are starting to work on, we think are obviously a big part of our goal to 100 billion, but like heavily moated. Like no one else is thinking about it. No one else is doing it. And even if I gave them a roadmap, they probably wouldn't be able to figure it out.
So that probably doesn't, does that apply to any of these other services that you ranked? Or is it? Is that a separate category?
I think a lot of when I'm ranking, it's like, what's the total addressable market? Like, how big can this thing get? What's the components inside it? Is it all service? Is it all install? Is it a mix? And that's just like, can you grow it? Like, does adding a net new customer grow the business, or does it just give you a project? Like roofing, it just gives you a project. Water filtration, it grows the business. So if I bring on 100 new customers in roofing in the next 6 months, then all that does is give me 100 roofs. But if I bring on 100 new customers in HVAC, that gives me like 50 maintenance contracts, 4 visits a year, eventual installs. it's indicative of future revenue, whereas
Right.
a net new customer, like a new customer file added in roofing, wouldn't matter.
Yeah, right. And that's what, like in my industry and a lot of personal or professional services, it's like you got to really look at the contract as an annuity, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to build an annuity that obviously you're serving and have to do stuff, and sometimes it screws up and goes away. But like you want to maintain these annuities and then build on top of them. And so that's what you're talking about. It's like roofing's great and all, but like it doesn't give me an annuity. So are you thinking about other services beyond, it sounds, I'm sure that the answer is yes, beyond water filtration that apply?
Like we have, so what we see happening next is we're going to roll up to about 50 million. So this year we'll wrap up around 26 to 28. Next year we'll wrap up in the like high 30s, 40 would be fun.
Yeah.
And the next big project that we see after that, it's basically going to be a year of focusing on leadership. And along that ride, I don't know that I see a big room for an additional service.
Yeah.
Because additional services are complicated. And what I would rather do is continue driving scale between our, like underneath our existing ones. I do think another geographic market is real in the next few years. We have a couple spots that we're thinking on, but I also think it's hard to do that because, again, I still want to put my kids down. Like my kids are 4 and 2.
Yeah.
So
wait till they go to college and you open up there.
Yeah. But I think the business gets to 50 million. So we have a little bit more depth to start sort of deploying.
And you think that's your TAM where you are, like 50s, 60s, 70s?
No. We could hit 100 here.
Then why ever go anywhere else? Faster?
I think faster. I think it's inevitable. And yeah, I think faster and it's inevitable. Plus, I think some of the things we're doing, I think I can. I don't know. So like some of the things that we figured out for like solving this prospects problem, as we're looking at it, we're like, no one else is doing this. No one else is even thinking about this. Like we could drop into a new market. Like not only will this moat us and protect us when inevitably somebody drops into our market and dumps 20 million in the first year, like we will feel okay still, which is hilarious to me. I mean, we'll see when it happens, but like we think we're going to be good. But I also think we could do the same for new markets, and we could use these sort of like approach. So I mainly I kind of want to mess around with it, see if I can.
Have you ever thought about flipping it and just doing like building the service of how you bring in the customers for other?
I just don't know that the value's there. Like I think what
asset light, man. I'll tell you that much.
Well, what we're talking about is we're talking about as we fully flush out the sort of strategy here, we think inevitably like Angie's List is going to knock.
Right.
Yeah. We think that's kind of inevitable.
Because they can apply
they could take it countrywide and they would buy it from us. Like they would be a natural buyer for what we're building.
Interesting. And they would, that would be referring to themselves, essentially. Is that how it would work? Yeah. That's fascinating.
Like, we'll see if I'm right, but I think I am.
I love it. Yeah. So the ultimate goal is some sort of like, get it to scale, get it to this 100 million. And then at that point, you're thinking like cash out kind of thing? Or?
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked. I don't know that I have a grand plan on that. I want to hit 9 figures because I want to do it. My kids are really young. And I think that the chances, like when I took over the business, it was really small. It was, million of sales with 8 people. And like you could get your arms around that. And I just don't know. I think the chances that my kids want it and the chances that they're capable of running it seems very low.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about a few $1,000,000, maybe, but if you're talking about a few $100 million, I don't see how that happens.
Yeah. And I think at that point, it's like you're professionalized at that point. It's pretty hard to get there. I mean, it's possible, but I also like hesitate to create like some expectation for my kid. Like, oh, you got to go figure out how to run this thing. And that's your legacy.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be
go figure it out yourself. Right.
It'd be a lot of pressure. Like if it's something that they're open to, but they're young, like my oldest is entering kindergarten. So it doesn't really feel like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially it would be, and what, like in your industry, I mean, a lot of people are going to exit to PE, but I guess there are some national players like strategics, like, well, I guess Angie's List would be a strategic, but.
No, so that was our project, not Wilson. So with Wilson, yeah, I mean, big PE, couple public companies. There's buyers, a lot of buyers, obviously, in the space. There's not many companies my size anymore that are private. Everyone's been bought.
Oh, when you were saying exit to Angie's List, you were talking about
that was
what?
our lead gen project. Yeah,
Your lead gen project, which you could see selling separately from the company.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's not a separate business at this point.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is. Okay, so you're doing lead. I didn't realize this. Okay, so you're doing lead gen for how many companies like yours?
No, yeah, just
you.
Us. Yeah, just.
But
us.
you separated it out.
Yeah, we're separating it out. Yeah, we think it has standalone value.
And that is based on. So you're doing what in that? Is it like advertising and ways to get referrals?
I'll tell you in a year.
Ah, all right. So it's
I'll tell you
black hat project right now.
Once we're far enough in that we can that we're fully moated.
Gotcha. All right. So you feel like you've got a system that can moat whoever uses it in their area against the competitor. Okay. Interesting. All right. So that's cool. All right. Well, we'll have it. We got
we'll connect
April 2025.
I'll tell you the word.
Excellent. That's awesome. All right. So, and then the last, just to hit it real quick, the last ones were kind of roofing. We mentioned a couple of times, but you had damage remediation and then foundation repair, lawn care, and landscaping. Any kind of comments about how those fit in and why those?
I think I'm just interested. It's all the same thing. Like, are they service, are they install, or are they a combination? And then how adjacent are they to licensed services, and how big is the TAM? Foundation repair, huge TAM. Like, absolutely massive. Also pretty competitive. Lead gen is kind of interesting to me. So, yeah, I think, I do like foundation repair. I think that's a cool one. I would do that before roofing, hands down.
Okay.
If it was me. Lawn care, the problem with lawn care is, it tends to be low average ticket if it's residential. Like, commercial is its own thing. And then the big vertical is, more hardscaping. But, yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's just me, but I just really like a business that you can get big locally. Like, what can you be a Goliath in while still sleeping in your bed every night?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty cool. All right. So those are your top. That was a very interesting summation.
Yeah.
So the other thing I really wanted to hit on was you've been a big thought leader on getting over what, I call it, but I really got it from Greg Crabtree, from Simple Numbers. And he talked about the black hole of business.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that there are kind of multiple black holes, I think. A lot of people who start a business, they get stuck around $1 million, but it's really in that 2-3 million going up to 5 where a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah.
And if you look at the stats, right, 4% of businesses get to $1 million and 0.04 get to 10. And so it's somewhere in between there. People just get stuck. And my theory has always been it's when the owner can't kind of run everything anymore.
Yeah.
It's a hub and spoke model where the owner's the hub and everything else is a spoke. And you get to 2-3 million and the owner doesn't have any more hours. Right. And so, and there are no systems, there are no processes, and there's no management. And it's hard to afford management at that point that's competent, but it's about that time where you got to take the shot and you hire people. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. Mm-hmm. You overpay them. They're not good. You have to fire them. You wait too long. You slip back down, so it's this whole period. So talk a little bit. I know you developed a whole seminar on it that you had for people. So talk a little bit about your learnings in that.
Yeah. So you plugged it. I'll also plug it. We have a program called Breaking 5 Million Workshop, and it's at my location in Stowe, Ohio. Check it out. Owned and operated.
Awesome.
But yeah, 5 million is where the good stuff starts to happen. And 5 million is where you have a few managers, you've got enough money to reinvest, and you can start really growing. And underneath that, owner's hell is my word for it. Black hole is a good one too. But it's exactly that. I think you said it. There's plateaus at all these different stages of the business. 1 million, 3 million, 5 to 7, somewhere in there, 15. You talk about the 15 one a lot, and I totally agree. Holy smokes, that thing kicked my butt. And most of those plateaus is a journey for the owner. It's can the owner redevelop and be whatever the next version of themselves is? so that they can be whatever the business needs next. And sometimes it's releasing control, or sometimes my big stuff for the 15 to 20 was I have to think about labor and investment differently, which was a really big adjustment, because what got me to 15 to 20 was hiring people that I could afford and putting them in places that they weren't quite ready yet. But when you're breaking 15, that game doesn't work anymore. You have to hire the very best person possible for that role and pay them as much money as you possibly can so that they can be an expert at that thing. And that's a really big shift change, because that's something I've done my whole career. And suddenly I have to about face on this philosophy and change our culture and change hiring. But it took me understanding that I was the problem first, and that I was the reason that we had hiring practices. And I was doing that because I remember when the business was $1 million of revenue and I didn't have the money, and I was still dealing with scarcity. So, breaking 5, it's the same thing, just a different scale, right? It's owner scarcity. So like an owner starts making a little bit of money at $2 to $3 million, and they usually take their foot off the gas. I have never seen a more disengaged owner than owners between $3 and $5 million. It's almost comical, where these guys are like, yeah, dude, I'm working like 5 hours a week. I'm just doing my thing and like lifestyling it up. And I'm like, great. And then, your turnover, and you're not reinvesting, and then you're mad the business didn't grow, and because they just start sucking cash out. But they didn't take the leap to understand that just because the business earnings increased doesn't mean that your personal earnings should increase. And all of that money should be pumping back into the business to hire people that you can delegate to. And the goal shouldn't be how little can I work. The goal should be how much can I reinvest? Because like 3 to 5 million, that's still that's small. Like that is your vulnerable business at 3 to 5 million.
And I think your point on the owner look, people work their asses off to get there.
Yeah.
And then they get there, and their wife or their husband, in my case, it was always the wife, are like, what the hell? You haven't made more than 100K or 125K in like 4 years, and now we're still struggling. And so like, I get it. I took some money out myself, which is part of my problem. And I do think there's a role for maybe taking some spoils, but like, if you want to get past there, because that 3 to 5, you're not secure. It's one client, one thing, one person can
leaving.
Really screw you.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's what I hated the most about being small. I remember I was like 2 years in to running this company, and we were multi-trade, plumbing and HVAC at that point. And we had one HVAC guy. And I was just like drinking coffee or something in the morning, and I just like doing paperwork. I don't even know. And I looked over, and I was like, if this guy left, 40% of my business would shut off.
Wow.
I was 26 or 20, I was just like, oh my God, so most of my inspiration for growth was like a safeguard. Like, I don't like being vulnerable. And I think 3 to 5 is really tough. So the big mistakes I see at 3 to 5 is exactly that. I know guys with businesses 90% smaller than mine that have nicer cars, nicer houses, and boats. I don't have any of that. Like, I drove a wrapped Toyota Tacoma today. I'm just popping off. But my business, is going to go from 26 to 40 in the next 18 months. So I don't care.
Right. So I do have a different perspective when you get bigger, but we can discuss that after.
See, I'm the guy that paid himself $60,000 until we crossed $14 million of revenue.
Yeah. See, I also don't think that that's good. So I'm not going to judge you. Probably you guys have been very
Pop
successful.
off, dude.
But I do think that you should pay yourself a market wage as soon as you can. Because the reality is you're distorting the business, right?
Yeah. Well, it depends on what's the immediate goal. Like, if you're going to sell it, if that's the goal, then that's one thing.
I feel like you should make the business work the way it should work, right? And so, yes, people pay themselves less, and I know plenty of people that do it. But if you're lying to yourself about the profitability, or you're making decisions thinking, oh, the business is right in this way or that way, and it's like, well, in reality, you're subsidizing it. And look, when you get to 20 million, that doesn't make that much difference anymore. But when you're 3 to 5, people walking around saying I'm 30% profitable. And it's like, I pay myself $10. You're not 30% profitable. you're 8% profitable. And to me, that then shows, because you're subsidizing the business with your salary. Then if you're 8% profitable, you're under industry benchmark. So what the hell's going on here? Right. So I get it. People do it, but I do think you have to have that vision of like, how would the company operate if I weren't here? And you should know that at least. And if you can keep that in your mind and still pay yourself less and use the money to reinvest, great. But most people can't kind of keep that straight. Right. Yeah.
I think I paid myself market around 14, but I don't think I would do it any differently.
Yeah.
Because I did distort, but I'm not mistaken about the fact that I did distort it. Like I paid myself under market, but I also got the desired result, which was the business 10 times. So if that was the goal, then that's what, the outcome is what matters.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when you were talking about reinvesting at that phase, say 3, when you're 1 to 3, what was reinvesting? Like, what were you investing in?
Man, it was all the wrong stuff.
Of course. Shitty marketing that doesn't work.
Why are you doing this to me?
You paid some guy $30K to do something that didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I had someone contact me the other day on, I don't even remember what platform it was on, but I'm pretty sure it was a DM. And they were like $2 to $4 million or something like that. And they were going through their investments that they had made to grow. And one of them was like a massive investment in something that I was like, that doesn't even make sense. Like it was meant to drive revenue, but like I wouldn't do that. And I'm 10 times his size at that dollar amount. So I was just like, that's kind of wild.
So what moved the needle then? Like what did you invest in that actually? So you did an acquisition.
Acquisitions was a big one because like it is infrastructure. It's people and infrastructure, and you have to be able to afford those people, and you have to be able to then reinvest. Like we joke a lot about, we bought all these companies and we grew a lot organically, but growth was really kind of easy over the last few years in plumbing HVAC. But now we bought them all, we merged them all into one business, merged them all into one building, and we learned how to run a business our size. So we're learning stuff for the first time that we probably should have learned at like 10 million or 5 or something like that. But we're also learning it with way more resources. So when we learn something now, the needle is really getting moved. Yeah. Now, as far as like what moved the difference or what moved the needle, like back then, it would have been the simple stuff. Like, what's my website look like? How do I think about leads? How do I, am I running PPC? Am I running LSA? We made an investment into like a business system that helped us get organized and get structured. Yeah. I think most people would be well served with a business system, a software, and how are you going to get leads? And that should be
business system meaning like an EOS or something like that. Or
EOS, sure. We run on EOS, but I meant like we have an industry specific business system of like how to run it's a best practices group for our industry.
Oh, interesting. And you pay them to come in and
group or something like that with other people.
So like a business system thing, do they come in and train you and how to set up stuff?
They have trainings, they have coaches. Yeah. There's a lot there, like some SOPs, job descriptions, but that shortened.
And then you guys moved to something like Service Titan or something like that over time, or some
software.
Some kind of ERP.
Software was a big investment too.
And that came in at about that phase 3 to 5.
2 to 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we were making a joke recently because a lot of the investments that we made at like $2 million are still a core part of our infrastructure today. So Service Titan, like the CRM that we run on, is a core part of our business. And I did that decision at 1.7 million.
Wow.
Like how we think about fleet, same thing. There's a few others, like our enterprise mobile system. There's 5 or 6 services that have been with us from basically the beginning, and they've been a big part of the way that we've grown and scaled.
By the way, huge point you're making right here. At that phase, you're making these investments that will last you until today and beyond.
Yes.
So think about the ROI on that shit, right? I mean, it's huge. Well, but it was probably a huge cost at that point. Right?
Yeah, it's a huge cost. It's a huge cost now too. But, if you think switching a software or switching a process at 1 million is hard, imagine it at 10 or 20 or 100.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at these solutions, and this is one of the mistakes that I have made a lot, but even despite making some good decisions here, when you're looking at some of these solutions, cost savings isn't the only thing. Like, is this software or process that you're about to add to your business, does it work at 1 million, 5 million, 20 million,
Right.
100 million? And we've been somewhat intentional about, sometimes we miss, sometimes we were right, but we don't, like, it takes a lot of switch. And this, like, I have 130 people on the team. It is not easy to change a process, especially a big one like a software or something.
Yeah.
That takes months or years. It
Yeah.
would be a lot. So you just want to ideally partner with the right one early that can go the distance with you.
Right. And I think 2 points. One, choose the right one. But second point is you need to make that investment at that stage.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that vision for the future because that's how it pays off. Is long term.
Yeah. We know someone
and I think
who's like 60 million of revenue in our industry just switching over to Service Titan. And it took them like 2.5 years to make that switch.
Yikes.
Yep.
Yikes. Yeah,
Absolutely
I can imagine. Yeah, I think the thing that really moved the needle for us, I mean, we did invest in a lot of those things. We don't have quite the same framework in our industry, but it was really people. And so we added back office, right? We were running this thing on a shoestring in the back office.
Yeah.
And then for us, it was like a lot of people are billable. There's no management. There's no BD except for the billable people.
Yeah.
And we had to reduce billability, and that, it just made things scarier for a while. It's like, man, profitability went down, but, and we did it wrong. We hired the wrong people. We put the wrong people. We made them too unbillable. We had to go back. Like, it was just like a couple of years of just like going around until we got the formula right, And for me, it was like buying out a partner or two and all that kind of stuff. So that is, I mean, you get through that phase, you make the right investments, and it's never as bad going forward, I don't think.
Yeah. And like the investments we're making, we're in the people phase. I mean, you're always in the people phase, but like the last 12 months of my life has been what you just described. We're like, who's the right people to steward this department or this, new initiative or this existing department? And how can I get the best person? And what we see like between now and 50 million is literally that. It's almost just more of the same. So more leads, more managers, more techs, and like getting the right people in. But we wouldn't be able to have it be more of the same if we didn't have a good core group that was capable of getting there. It's
right. Like the way I've looked at it is like $1 million, you either buy a company or start it. Yeah. You can kind of get it there. Most people, like your dad got it there, your grandfather. But it's like learning how to grow past your sort of just immediate set of network and contact is difficult. That's what you're doing, and how to manage that is what you're doing at 2 to 3. You get to 5. It's like, hey, I can't manage all this. So now I need at least one system has to run without me. And that's when you're hiring that person. And then when you get up to 15, you're really looking at like, hey, I need a system working in every place. So I need a team, a leadership team. Yeah. And then you're pruning that team and focusing on that team, building their own teams underneath them.
Yeah.
And one of the big problems you get is that person you pick up at 3 to 5 who helped you build a system might not be a great person to build a team at 15, right?
Yeah.
And especially if you grow really quickly, because companies can grow faster than people, as I say.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it gets complicated.
Yeah. And then after that, you're just working on that for a long time. And then we'll see when we get to 50 what the challenge is. I think we're both closing in on that. So.
Yeah, I think like we see 40 next year, so then 50 is 26. And I'm intimidated.
That's interesting. We're kind of on the same timeline. But.
Yeah, I'm intimidated by the challenges that I expect at 50.
Yeah.
I'm intimidated.
Well, you know what someone told me, and it's part of this, I just did a pod this morning about it, it's the strata and life cycle of business. And sort of like when you get to that larger size, it becomes more about the market. And so like your job becomes, are we aligned to the market? Mm-hmm. Because now you're in this much bigger TAM and you've got to understand it and navigate it the right way. And so you kind of need the people and the team you have in the office managing everything to do that without you. And you need to be focused on how is this market changing?
Yeah.
And you're going to be looking at PEs coming to the door, other people, like, should I be going to this other market over here?
Yeah.
You know, that to me is like, you become much more outward focused is my sense.
Yeah. I agree. So our journey from now to 50 is almost exclusively focused on like, what is the maximum amount of leads that we can get in the door? Because that's become the challenge. So if we can get, and like basically differentiating lead sources, because we capped out our channels. So, and then what we're expecting that to do is to create moat for incoming entrants to our space. And then the challenges after that, which we are already feeling, but we expect to feel more, is going to be our recruitment and onboarding process and ongoing training.
Say more about that marketing piece. So that was a lot of marketing words that I sort of understood, but didn't register with me. So like, you're differentiating your leads because you're tapping out sort of the standard ones.
Yeah.
And then that differentiation creates a moat.
Yes.
Okay. And that's the part that's like, ask me in a year how we're differentiating the leads.
That's part of, that's one of them. Yeah. I mean, there's a few other things too that's just like normal, like how we think about TV and mass market radio.
So you're talking about like going to different media too?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, what can I do now? So what can I do now that will both drive brand and create moat? Because brand is moat, and that will give me leads in the process of doing it. So that's been the big problem that I've been working on for the past like 6 to 9 months. And it's been working like honestly insanely. But I also think, wherever an executive focuses their superpower, that tends to be the thing that takes off. But, for us, we're getting more calls now in off season per week than we got in peak season 6 months ago.
Wow.
So
that big a difference
multiple
in that short of time.
Multiple.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's driven by, what would you say the main drivers?
I mean, I could talk for days on that, like a lot. That's taken a lot. But like, in order to do 100 million, we need a lot of leads. So we're really trying to solve and moat the lead problem in a way that other people either are or aren't, but we're just trying to do it bigger.
Right.
Trying to bring a bazooka to a knife fight.
Right. And then the last part you hit on, which is, I assume a major issue in your industry, is the recruitment and bringing in, staffing this.
Yeah, our problem is less about recruitment and it's more about onboarding. So like, recruitment is like, it's not as complicated. If you have a good company that's growing fast and paying people a lot of money, like, recruitment is not the issue that we have. The issue that we're having is currently in training and onboarding. And that's a major pain point. So if we bring in, Chad Peterman said it really well the other day. He's in my industry, but multiples larger than me, like 5 times. But he said they used to bring in like green people who wanted to learn because they thought they were getting rid of their, like, hey, I'm getting them without bad habits. And then he sort of realized, no, we just don't know how to train people at all. And that's where we are too. We're like, yeah, we can train you, but like, we're not very good at getting you from, you worked at this guy over here, let's convert you to our system in a short amount of time. It's a weakness for sure. So we have enough talent in the market to get to 50 million and higher. Like, cause we're big. Like, we'll just keep poaching. Like, I'm not worried about it.
And you've looked at like what Chris Hoffman's doing with, like, they bought like a university.
Yeah, we end up having to do a school for the next few years. Like, that will be a problem. And I don't want to downplay it. Like, we're not immune to that issue. But we do have a few years because there are enough other competitors that we can just continue to rip from by offering a better opportunity.
Right. Interesting. So as he's grown, he's probably hit that limit now. Has to find a new way.
Yeah, I suspect so.
And so how are you going to approach?
We'll hit that at 70 to 82. We'll run out of people to like take their techs basically.
Right. And then how do you think about doing better onboarding? I mean, it's a huge subject for us, like professional services. We've built and refined our program for 10 years, I mean, it's a lot. Yeah.
I mean, active project, big project, obviously it's a lot. So we have a V1, like we have an onboarding, but our onboarding realistically should be like 6 full weeks. and right now it's like a week and a half.
Yeah.
And a lot gets missed. So we
Yeah.
have a V1 coming out in maybe a few weeks that we've been working on, and then we'll put people in the queue and start filling it up.
So man, there's this one guy who was in a mastermind class with me. He ran physical therapy clinics in New York. He got killed during the pandemic, but he ran these things so profitably. And one of the things was his onboarding and training. And he had this whole system where like he had baseball cards for every single person and every skill was kind of broken down.
Yeah.
And then you had to demonstrate, like you had to learn it, do it, and then teach it to get to the highest level. And then you had to recertify. And like this guy he would take people just like who were front desk people and turn them into like top salespeople.
Totally.
And they were just working the front desk because of this system he built. Right.
I think it's possible. It's not only possible, but necessary.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to be able to get to scale. Like we'll break before we get there if we don't fix our onboarding. Like our performance will always suffer. We won't be able to hit the numbers we're aiming for. So yeah, present problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, I've kept you over time, so I really appreciate you doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. So we'll have to talk through the wealth thing at some point, taking money out. So here's my brief pitch, okay? And then we'll debate. Maybe we'll have a debate online because there are a lot of you guys on X who are like, reinvest everything, you know. My take is that there's certain parts of your life that aren't going to come back.
Yeah.
Right? And so you should your company should serve you, not the other way around, and your family. And so you should, take the money you need to live a great life, right? And then at some point, it's really got to deliver, or else I think your family will start resenting it. That's my take. And so, but I think there's reasonable and unreasonable, right? So I've kind of gotten into this a third thing. So a third goes to taxes, a third to take out, a third gets reinvested. And it's a little like Old Testament kind of thing, but that's my take. And so as I'm a little older, I'm down the journey from you, but
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. And and my perspective is probably what it is because I started in my 20s when I didn't have kids.
Right.
And like now I agree. Like now I want to have the lake house for the kids. That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, I also think the business can support it now because of the decisions that I made in reinvesting it. So like, from my perspective, I'm like, I agree with you for now. But if I was doing $4 million and I wanted to buy a lake house, that would have been dumb.
Right. I also think there's seasons. Yeah, I agree.
But like, yeah, my kids are like really young and like, I think it'd be fun to like disappear for a month and we've done it before a few times and like, that's fun. We love it. And
there's also seasons to a business, right? So like right now I'm in a phase where we're growing really well and like the cash is going well, but we're going to get to a point where we need to start doing M&A. Yeah. And so like then the cash machine is going to shut off and be focused on that, right? Yeah. So it'll change over time, but I just like to also I also think through like what the hell is it for, right? Yeah. I mean, am I doing this so my deadbeat great grandkids can like go to Turks and Caicos for vacation and I sacrificed all this stuff? It's like there's a little bit of that too. It's like at the end, you're in business to make money, right? Yeah. So you should spend some of it. But that's just my theory. So
I agree with you.
Excellent. Well, cool. John, this has been really cool, man. And so anyone who wants to reach out, unoperated.com is awesome newsletter, podcast, anything else, they get you on Twitter at Wilson, Wilson Companies.
Yep.
At Wilson Companies. Okay. And any other way people should reach out?
Those are the best ones.
Awesome.
We're experimenting with LinkedIn, but I don't know how it's going. But
I'm too. LinkedIn's a different universe. It's got some advantages.
Yeah, it's a different world.
Cool. All right, John. We'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Small Business Mentor podcast, brought to you by Alan Pentz. For more insights on how to navigate your business through its black holes, visit @apentz on X. Don't forget to search for Small Business Mentor in your podcast app to subscribe. Thank you for joining us, and here's to your next leap in business growth.